Welcome to my channel Roadmap to Data Science, and in today's channel session we would be starting with the machine learning series. So before we start with the actual machine learning algorithms, let us first understand what is machine learning. So machine learning is nothing but it's a scientific process of developing an algorithms that learns the pattern from the historical data or the training data and performs the inferences or the prediction on the test data. Okay. So basically the broad working of machine learning is such that you would first collect the data, then you will train the model, and then you will predict the accuracy of the model, and then you would deploy that model. Okay. So let's say you got a data set. Okay. And that data set is known as a training data set or the historical data sets. So here you would supply that historical data set to your machine learning algorithms, and then you would be building a model. Once your model is being built, you would then evaluate your model on the basis of the test data or the new input data, and then you will try to see that how your model is behaving on the new data sets. So if your model is behaving well and it is good enough to deploy, then you would be calling it a successful model and you would be deploying that model. If you feel that the model performance is not good, then you would be retraining those model again or optimizing those models. So basically this is a broad level overview, and you could zoom in and there are, if you zoom in this layer or if you zoom in this layer, there are various steps involved behind the scenes. But at this point in time, you just need to understand few things. First thing is that you would be collecting the data, then you would be training the machine learning model with the collected data sets, then you would validate the prediction accuracy, and then you would be predict in real time with the new data and if the model is successful. Okay. Now, let us understand before we move on to actual machine learning, let us first understand about the data. What is data? So data is any information that is being transformed, stored, or collected or retrieved is known as data. So I am talking to you and you are storing this information that becomes a data for you. I am just delivering this session and this session is being recorded and then deployed over to YouTube for your consumption, then it becomes a data for you. So data could be anything which is a quantity, information, graphs, any measurements, any observations, any facts or numbers. Okay, so there are different types of data that we would be dealing with the machine learning algorithm. So first one is the structured data. What then we will read about the semi-structured data, and then we would be seeing about the unstructured data. So let us first understand what do we mean by structured data. So structured data is in the form of rows and columns. If I talk about Excel, okay, it is in the form of rows and columns and it could be a structured data. If I talk about SQL, in SQL the tables are stored in rows and columns, that would be called as the structured data. Then how about semi-structured data? It is in the form of key value pair. It is in the form of key value pair. Okay, it could be in the XML format, it could be in the JSON format. Okay, it could be in the uh, NoSQL. So it is basically a NoSQL database that would be handling the semi-structured data, and a NoSQL database could also handle the unstructured data. If I talk about unstructured data, it could be videos, photos, a text document, a PDF document. Those all categories would fall under the unstructured data. So let us move on and see in depth about the structured data and the unstructured data. If we talk about the properties of the formats, okay, the formats with structured data follows. So there are various formats, but unstructured data can have huge variety of formats. Okay, that's where it could have the videos. I could record something and then post. It could be in the text format. anything. Okay. If I talk about the data model, we have the predefined data model and it is a rigid, it is not flexible. It The unstructured data does not have any predefined data model. It is very much flexible. Here in structured data, we would be using the concept of data warehouses, whereas in the unstructured data, we would be using the concept of the data lakes. If I talk about the database, uh, structured data uses the relational database. That's where we discuss about the SQL, and the unstructured data would handle the NoSQL database, and it is a non-relational database. What is the advantage or pros and the cons of each one of this? For structured data, it is very easy to search, but for unstructured data, it is very difficult to search. And if I talk about the nature of data, it is quantitative, and the nature of data or the data nature in the unstructured data would be qualitative. Okay, then what algorithms would fall under each of this? For structured data, we would be using the classification, regression, clustering methods. Here we would be using the data stacking, data mining, and if we talk about the tools and technologies, we would be using RDBMS, OLAP, online analytical processing, OLTP, online transactional processing. If I talk about the tools and technologies that is being used in the unstructured data, it is the NoSQL, DBMS, AI-driven tools, data storage architectures, and the data visualization tools. Now, who would be handling this type of data? So structured data would be handled by business analysts, software engineers, marketing analysts, whereas the unstructured data could be handled by data scientists, data engineers, and the analyst with the deep expertise. Now we got a very in-depth understanding about what is data, what are different types of data, and what is difference between structured data and the unstructured data. Let us now move on and see what is data set. So data set consists of rows and columns arranged in a way that each row contains an observation. You could map this behind the scenes with the Excel. Okay, in Excel, each row consists of some observation. That's where it is talking about the spreadsheets and the APIs. So in machine learning, 80% of your time would be spent in preparing the data and visualizing the things, and only 20% of your efforts would go in the model building and retraining those models. But you need to get in-depth understanding about the data sets. You need to prepare the data sets. You need to do a visualization over those data sets. And then once you are confident, then you can move on and apply the machine learning algorithms. Now, if I talk about the applications of the machine learning, so the first application comes around to be recommendation of products. So have you ever wondered that when you order something from Amazon, okay, let's say you ordered bread, and why it is trying to recommend you the butter, why it is not recommending you the belt or bag or table or any furniture? Why? Let's say if I'm ordering something, let's say if I'm ordering bread, then it would recommend me butter, jam. It could also recommend me knife. Okay, but it would never ever recommend me the furnitures. Okay, so this is what about the behind the scenes. The algorithm that works is recommendation engine. Okay, so what it does, it finds the similarities between the products which are tightly coupled and tries to recommend you. The another example could be, let us talk about the Netflix. Okay, how Netflix is knowing that, okay, you are interested in watching the thriller movies, or how it is able to identify the group of movies, how it is grouping all the movies. So let's say all comedy movies are being grouped under one section, all horror movies are being grouped under one section. That's where the grouping of the similar items is taking place. And that's where you would be learning the recommendation engine. And behind the scenes, you should understand that it's all about the machine learning algorithms. Now, if I talk about another application of the machine learning is self-driving cars. It uses the concept of reinforcement learning. It is one of the deep learning models, and we know that Tesla is using the concept of the reinforcement learning. So, have you wondered how this Tesla automatic car or driverless car is trying to identify the objects, right? H- How they have built such kind of cars. So basically, it uses the reinforcement learning and various combination of deep learning methods. That's where it also have the cameras. Cameras would detect the object. Then this Tesla car would keep on learning your driving skills. Okay, so let's say how the baby learns slowly and steadily, and then he gets matured enough. In the similar manner, the reinforcement learning works on the same concept where you have the award and penalty. The concept of the award and penalty. And if there is some penalty, then it would retrain itself and learn from that past mistake and correct it in the future. So this concept is being used by the driverless cars, and that's where we are using the reinforcement learning. That is one of the machine learning areas. Now, if I talk about the third application, that is Google Translate. So have you ever wondered how Google is able to translate from one language to another, right? Nowadays, if you just scan a letter or a statement, it would just translate it into your language. Okay. So how this Google is doing, how that Alexa is recognizing your voice, that is a speech recognition, how Google is able to translate behind the scenes, they are using NLP, natural language processing. Okay. So if you see, machine learning is very broader area and you have different domains. So reinforcement learning is domain itself. NLP, a natural language processing, is itself a domain or an ocean. You have many things to learn in that. You have computer vision as a domain. It it works on the basis of the images, videos, and that is another one domain. Okay. So we would see that what are the different categories of machine learning. So machine learning is broadly classified into supervised machine learning algorithms, unsupervised machine learning algorithms, semi-supervised, and reinforcement learning. Now, what is supervised? So in supervised, you would be having a labels connected with your dataset that we will talk about. If you are interested in finding the patterns in your dataset, then you should go with the unsupervised machine learning algorithms. Now, reinforcement learning, we already talked about the Tesla cars. If I talk about another uh, application for the reinforcement learning, it is about the gaming systems. Okay, have you wondered how the uh, chess has been developed? Okay, from the ancient times or from long ago, we are playing chess with the computers, but how the computers are able to think, right? So it is based or built on the concept of the reinforcement learning, and that's where those computer games are able to take some real-time decisions. Okay, now let us in depth learn about the supervised machine learning algorithm, that how this supervised machine learning algorithm works. Okay, now uh, you have the data that is a labeled data. You would see here I am supplying some of the shapes. Okay, this is a shape with 6 sides. It is a shape with 4 sides. This is a shape with 3 sides, right? But at this point in time, this data or the machine learning model does not recognize that, okay, this is a hexagon or this is a square or this is a triangle. So you are explicitly feeding the labels and telling the machine learning that, hey, if you find this type of shape, then you can name it as hexagon. If you find a shape with 4 sides, then you can name it as square. If you find a shape with 3 sides, then you can name it as triangle. Okay, So this machine learning algorithm would identify these patterns and then map those patterns with the labels and able to build a model. So now when I would apply a new data, that is a test data, see I am randomly applying two shapes and it is able to identify and give you the label names. So moment I apply this type of shape, the machine learning algorithm is able to identify and tell us that this is a square. The moment I apply a shape with three sides, it is able to tell us that this is a triangle. Okay. So in later stage, we would just zoom in this model training and we would see more insights about this. But at this point in time, you need to understand that supervised machine learning algorithm uses the labeled data. So you need to apply some labels with the data set and the model will find the patterns inside the data sets. And once the model is being built or finalized, then you can supply the new data sets without the label names and the model will predict the correct labels. If I talk about unsupervised machine learning algorithm, we I told you that there would be no labeled data set. It is just you would get some raw data set and you would apply the machine learning models and then machine learning models will try to identify some patterns. Okay, so if you are not sure that what you need to do with your data sets, then go for the unsupervised machine learning algorithms. It will try to find out some patterns in your data set. So if I talk about few real life applications where we would be using the unsupervised machine learning algorithm is market surveys. If I have a survey data, okay, and I need to find out my most important customers. To whom should I approach? Then I can apply the unsupervised machine learning algorithms and try to find the patterns. Okay. Or let's say I want to launch a product. Okay. And now I did a survey. And from that survey, some people told that, okay, it is a good product, it is a bad product. Okay, it could be an interesting product. So on that basis, now I want to find out that which type of people would be more buying my product. Okay, what is the age group? What is the age group? And which age group are going to buy that product uh, least? Okay, so that type of information I need to find. So you would see here we have the scattered data set or the unlabeled data sets. And when I apply the unsupervised machine learning algorithm, you would see it has find the patterns and it has segregated this whole data set into three parts on the basis of the colors. So this machine learning algorithm has identified the patterns for you. Okay, which is very tedious for human eyes to identify. So it would save you a lot of time. That's where this type of model is very helpful. And 99% of the time, you would deal with this type of models too. If I talk about semi-supervised machine learning algorithm, so it is a combination of the supervised and the unsupervised. So you would see here, this is basically a hybrid model, okay, and it is combination of the previous two types of learning, and we have the mixed data sets. In our data set, we have mixed data sets. Some are labeled and some are raw data. So what we can do is the label data, there is no problem. For those label data, I can apply the supervised machine learning algorithm. But when I would get the unlabeled data, I would feed that unlabeled data into the unsupervised machine learning algorithm, and then it would identify the patterns for me and see if it is the three sides, then again my model can identify that yes, this is a triangle. If it is a four sides, model can identify that it is a square. So see, once I pass this unlabeled data to the unsupervised machine learning algorithm, so it has given me two patterns. Now these two patterns, what I can do, I can just combine the labeled data and these two patterns, what I got, and then feed it to the supervised machine learning model. And that's where the combination of the unsupervised and the supervised machine learning model is known as the semi-supervised machine learning model. So it has a mixed data sets of the labeled and the raw data with higher proportion of the raw data. Then the last machine learning algorithm is the reinforcement learning. And here I told you that this model allows to learn from the mistakes that you are doing. Okay, so here there is a two concept. One is the award and a penalty, and there is an agent. So this is basically an environment. It would be treated the so what this reinforcement learning do? So this collects the data from the feedback. What feedback you are getting? So this is the feedback that you are getting. Okay, and it receives in the environment of the deployment, and from that it will just identify. Okay, if I'm doing correct, then it is a reward. If I'm not doing correct, then it is a penalty. It will give a feedback to the environment and it will correct it. Okay, so the Tesla cars that we talked about. So there is a concept of agent. We are not going in depth at this point in time. So you need to understand that the Tesla car constantly learn and improve their models from the data sets, okay, which is being collected. And in reinforcement learning, there is a concept of reward and penalty, and there is one agent, and that agent will identify that whether I am making a mistake or not, and then the feedback is sent to the environment. So it would constantly keep on learning and mature itself day by day as you use that algorithm. Okay. Now, if I talk about the types of machine learning techniques, so there is one type which is a classification, which is a supervised machine learning technique. And if you see in this classification, we are trying to classify the two classes. Okay, it will predict which type or class the real-time input data set belongs to. Okay, so let's say if I'm feeding a circle, so it has to segregate whether it belongs to a class A or class B. If I'm inputting a shape which has three sides, so it has to identify does it belongs to class A or class B. So it is basically if you want to classify something, yes or no, true or false, okay, high, low, medium, that's where you would try to use the classification algorithm. Let's say you want to identify whether an email is ham or spam. That's where you have two categories and you want to classify that emails. So you would be using a classification algorithm. So we would study about the classification algorithm in depth, but at this point in time, you need to understand if you want to classify some information into different groups, then you can use the classification algorithms. Now, the next type of algorithm is regression algorithm. Okay, what it does, it is basically the regression algorithms are used for the continuous columns. Okay, so let's say if I have to predict the price of houses, it is a continuous column. If I want to predict the mileage of a car, it is a continuous column. Okay, so that's where you have when you have the continuous column, you would use the regression. So in this, you would see it is trying to find out the correlation between the variables. It would find a correlation between the variables. So we have plotted the scatter plot. So let's say this scatter plot is between the uh, build quality of house versus the price of houses. So you would see that as the build quality of the house is increasing, the price of house is increasing. And that's where you want to draw a line. Okay, in regression, you would try to fit the data set by drawing a line. Okay, we would talk about those things in detail, but at this point in time, you should understand if you want to predict a continuous column, then you would go with regression. If you want to classify some of the problem statement, then you would be using the classification algorithms. Now, the clustering is some, let's say if you don't have the labeled data, this is one of the unsupervised machine learning algorithm. Classification and regression are the supervised machine learning algorithm, but clustering is unsupervised machine learning algorithm. So here what we are doing is we are grouping the observations in the data set on the basis of the patterns. So you would see all the red colors are being grouped in one data, okay, at one place. So that's where you have drawn a line, that is the separation line. You are trying to separate these three groups. Okay, you are trying to find the patterns and separate these three groups. So this is what you would do in clustering. So you would have the clusters. So one cluster is of green color, another cluster is of red color, third cluster is of black color. Okay, so this is a high level understanding about the clustering. So let's say if I want to identify the fake news in the newspaper, so that's where I can use this algorithm. So guys, this is all about in the today's session. Here we learned about what is machine learning, what is the broad working of the machine learning. Then we saw what is data, what are the types of data, what is structured data, unstructured data, what do you mean by data sets. Then we saw a few applications of the machine learning. We learned about the recommendation of the products, self-driving cars, Google Translate, and we saw the few categories of the machine learning. We saw what do we mean by supervised machine learning, unsupervised machine learning, semi-supervised and reinforcement learning. We also saw two types of supervised machine learning algorithm, that is a classification and regression, and we saw unsupervised machine learning algorithm, that is a clustering. So that's all for today's session. I hope you liked this session. So please do subscribe to this channel if you like this channel, and see you in the next videos. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye bye.